Deep in the heart of a dense forest lies an abandoned asylum with a haunting past. Its crumbling facade, surrounded by gnarled trees and creeping vines, stands as a testament to a bygone era when the mentally ill were hidden away from society's eyes. The asylum, known as St. Agnes Asylum, was closed decades ago, and tales of unspeakable horrors that occurred within its walls still echo in the minds of those who dare to speak its name. The locals have long since shunned the place, but it continues to beckon to those drawn to the mysteries of the past. A group of urban explorers, driven by a fascination with the macabre and a thirst for adventure, decided to embark on a journey into the heart of the forest to discover the secrets of St. Agnes Asylum. Their mission was not for the faint of heart, as they knew the asylum's past was riddled with dark stories and eerie legends. Armed with cameras, flashlights, and a few tidbits of information they had gathered from online forums, the explorers set out one chilly autumn evening. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the dense canopy of trees began to swallow the sounds of civilization. The air grew colder, and the ground beneath their feet became uneven and covered with fallen leaves. It was an unsettling atmosphere, to say the least, but it only fueled their excitement and curiosity. The asylum was hidden well within the forest, its location known to only a select few. The explorers, who went by the names of Jake, Sarah, Tom, and Lisa, navigated their way through the trees using a crude map they had obtained from a fellow urban explorer who had visited the asylum years before. The path was anything but straightforward, with overgrown thorns, hidden pitfalls, and eerily glowing fireflies casting strange, ethereal light on their journey. The closer they got to their destination, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The forest seemed to grow quieter, as if the very trees were holding their breath. Sarah, who had been enthusiastic about the adventure, began to feel a shiver of unease creeping up her spine. She glanced at her companions, and her nervousness was mirrored in their eyes. Finally, they reached the edge of the forest and saw the first signs of the asylum. The imposing building loomed ahead, its dark silhouette against the dimming sky. The explorers paused for a moment, staring at the place with a mix of anticipation and dread. The asylum was even more sinister than they had imagined, its Gothic architecture casting eerie shadows as the last rays of sunlight faded. As they entered the asylum's courtyard, they noticed that many of the windows were shattered, and the building was engulfed by the ever-encroaching forest. Nature had taken over, with vines creeping up the walls and weeds pushing their way through cracks in the concrete. The explorers realized that the place had been abandoned for far longer than they had thought. Jake, the self-proclaimed leader of the group, rallied the others with a nervous laugh. "All right, guys, we came all this way. Let's not chicken out now. Remember, we're here to capture some amazing footage and maybe uncover a bit of history. Who's with me?" The others nodded, though their enthusiasm was masked by apprehension. They entered the asylum, and the moment they crossed the threshold, a shiver ran down their spines. The air inside was thick with the scent of decay and mildew, and a heavy silence enveloped them. Their flashlights revealed the asylum's interior, which was a labyrinth of dark, twisting hallways and abandoned rooms. They began their exploration cautiously, capturing the eerie beauty of the place through the lenses of their cameras. As they ventured deeper, they found discarded hospital equipment, rusted gurneys, and broken wheelchairs, all remnants of a time when the asylum was a place of suffering and despair. As they explored further, Sarah noticed strange, cryptic markings on the walls. "Look at this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's like a maze, but it's also like someone was trying to leave a message." Tom, the skeptic of the group, scoffed. "Probably just some kids fooling around. This place is known for attracting all sorts of thrill seekers." But the unease continued to grow, and the feeling that they were not alone began to gnaw at their nerves. Strange noises echoed through the corridors, the distant sound of footsteps, whispers in the darkness, and faint, ghostly cries. Every shadow seemed to come alive, and their flashlights revealed fleeting glimpses of figures that were not there when they turned to look. Lisa, a true believer in the supernatural, couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. She muttered, "I heard stories about the spirits of former patients still haunting this place. Maybe we should leave." Jake, who had been all bravado earlier, felt a chill down his spine. "Let's just finish exploring one more floor," he suggested. "We've come this far, we can't turn back now." Reluctantly, the group ascended a creaking staircase to the upper levels of the asylum. The hallways on this floor were lined with closed doors leading to patient rooms. They hesitated, unsure if they should venture further, but curiosity and a strange compulsion drove them forward. In one of the rooms, they found a decaying mattress on the floor, its rusted bed frame a haunting reminder of the suffering that had taken place here. Sarah began to feel a profound sadness wash over her, as though the very walls of the asylum were whispering their tragic stories into her ears. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. Their sense of dread deepened as they continued to explore the upper floors. Strange phenomena intensified. Doors slammed shut on their own, and lights flickered. At one point, they heard the sound of a child's laughter echoing through the hallways, but there were no children to be found. Lisa couldn't ignore the signs any longer. "I think there's something here with us," she said, her voice quivering. Tom scoffed, but his bravado was fading fast. "Come on, guys, it's just our imagination playing tricks on us. Let's head back downstairs and call it a night." They turned to leave but were met with a terrifying sight. The hallway had changed. The walls were covered in grotesque, writhing patterns that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. The doors they had just passed were now gone, replaced by a seemingly endless corridor of darkness. Panic set in as the group realized they were trapped in a nightmarish maze within the asylum's depths. They frantically retraced their steps, but the hallway seemed to stretch and shift, confounding their attempts to escape. The asylum itself appeared to be playing sinister games with them. As they pressed on, they found themselves in a room with a large, ornate mirror that seemed completely out of place in the decrepit surroundings. Their reflections appeared distorted and malevolent, showing them as grotesque, otherworldly figures. Lisa let out a terrified scream, and the mirror shattered into 1,000 shards, leaving them surrounded by an icy, oppressive silence. They had no choice but to continue forward, and their encounters with the supernatural only grew more intense. They heard the anguished wails of the past, saw ghostly figures lurking in the shadows, and felt the touch of unseen hands that left icy imprints on their skin. The asylum itself seemed to feed on their fear and despair. Hours turned into an eternity as they struggled to navigate the asylum's shifting, nightmarish corridors. Exhausted and terrified, they began to lose hope of ever finding a way out. In a moment of desperation, they huddled together in a dimly lit room, their flashlights casting long, trembling shadows. "It's as if the asylum itself is alive," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "It's toying with us, feeding on our fear." Jake, his confidence shattered, nodded in agreement. "We should have listened to the warnings about this place. We've made a terrible mistake." Tom had grown increasingly silent, his skepticism replaced by a creeping dread. He muttered, "I think we've angered something here, something beyond our understanding." Lisa, who had been the most sensitive to the supernatural from the beginning, felt a strange compulsion to speak. "We need to acknowledge the spirits here, to show them respect and ask for their forgiveness. Maybe, just maybe, they'll let us go." With trembling hands, they formed a circle and began to speak aloud, addressing the spirits of the asylum. They asked for forgiveness for intruding into their domain and promised to leave and never return. The air in the room grew heavier, and their voices quivered as they made their plea. Suddenly, the room was filled with a blinding light, and a powerful force seemed to envelop them. It was as if the very walls of the asylum had come alive, responding to their entreaty. The spirits, once restless and malevolent, began to manifest before their eyes, their forms shifting between anguish and sadness. One by one, the spirits of St. Agnes Asylum shared their stories with the explorers. They spoke of the horrific treatments they had endured, the isolation, and the despair. As the explorers listened, tears welled up in their eyes, and they felt an overwhelming sense of empathy for the tormented souls trapped within the asylum's walls. As the spirits finished their stories, the oppressive atmosphere in the room began to dissipate, and the group felt a strange calm settle over them. The darkness and the labyrinthine corridors that had ensnared them started to recede. They found themselves standing back in the asylum's courtyard, the building looming above them. The asylum was no longer the foreboding, malevolent structure they had encountered earlier. It stood in solemn silence, and the once dark windows now seemed to gaze upon them with a melancholic resignation. The explorers, their perspective forever changed, made their way out of the forest. Their encounter with the spirits of St. Agnes Asylum left a lasting mark on them. They had ventured into the heart of a dark and haunted place and come face to face with the horrors of the past. But they had also found a glimmer of redemption, a chance to connect with the forgotten and tortured souls who had suffered within those walls. In the end, the urban explorers had not only uncovered the sinister encounters of the past, but had also touched the depths of human suffering and found a way to offer solace to the restless spirits who dwelled within the abandoned asylum. They had learned that sometimes, the most chilling and haunting stories are the ones that ultimately lead to understanding and compassion, even in the darkest of places.